You're listening to Urban Whispers, where the strange and the spectral are never far behind. They say that if you hear the sound of a woman weeping near a river at night, you should run, because the closer her cries seem, the farther away she truly is, and if her voice fades into the distance, it means she is standing right behind you. This is the legend of La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexico and Latin America. Before we dive into tonight's tale, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the stories that lurk in the shadows. The origins of the weeping woman. La Llorona's story has been whispered for centuries, passed from generation to generation across Mexico and Latin America. The details shift depending on who tells it, but at its heart, the legend always carries the same chilling weight. She was once a beautiful woman. Some say her name was Maria. She fell in love with a wealthy man, and together they had children. But over time, his affection began to fade. He grew distant, unfaithful, and left her consumed with grief. One night, blinded by pain and rage, Maria led her children to the river and drowned them. But the moment she saw their lifeless bodies drifting away, the horror of her actions struck her. In despair, she hurled herself into the water to follow them. When her spirit reached the afterlife, she was turned away. Her punishment was eternal, to wander the earth, searching endlessly for the children she destroyed. The curse of La Llorona. And so she became La Llorona, the weeping woman. Her ghostly figure is said to appear along rivers, lakes, and streams. She wears a long white gown, her hair tangled and wet, and her cries pierce the silence of the night. Ay, mis hijos, ¿dónde están mis hijos? Oh, my children, where are my children? Her mournful wail is more than a sound. It is a warning. Those who hear it are cursed. Some say if her cry sounds close, you are safe, for she is still far away. But if it sounds faint, almost distant, beware, she is right beside you. Encounters with the weeping woman. For generations, stories of La Llorona's presence have terrified communities. Parents warn their children not to wander near rivers at night, fearing she will mistake them for her lost souls. Travelers tell of seeing her pale figure gliding along the water's edge, vanishing when approached. Drivers on lonely roads whisper of a woman in white appearing suddenly in their headlights, only to dissolve into nothingness. Some claim she punishes those who neglect their families. Others believe she lures unfaithful men into watery graves. But all agree on one thing. Once you hear her cries, escape is impossible. A legend that endures. La Llorona is more than a ghost story. She is a part of Latin American identity. Parents invoke her tale as a warning, while communities honor and fear her presence. Her legend endures because it is both terrifying and tragic. La Llorona is not just a spirit meant to scare children. She is a mother condemned to eternal suffering, a reminder of grief, guilt, and consequences that cannot be undone. So, the next time you find yourself near a river beneath the cover of night, listen carefully. If you hear the sound of a woman crying, pray that it is only the wind. Deep in the forests of North America, legends whisper of a shadow moving through the trees, tall, hairy, silent. Some call it the missing link. Others call it a myth, but everyone knows the name. Bigfoot. Tonight, we explore America's most elusive legend, and the question that has haunted generations: is Bigfoot real, or just a story told around campfires? Don't forget to subscribe to Urban Whispers, where the strangest mysteries come alive. Ancient origins. Long before the word Bigfoot ever appeared in a headline, Indigenous tribes across the Pacific Northwest told stories of towering wild men. The Salish people spoke of Sasquatch, a being both respected and feared. From them, we get the modern word Sasquatch. For Native communities, this wasn't a cartoon monster or a marketing gimmick. It was something real, an unseen presence that roamed the mountains and forests, watching from the shadows. The birth of Bigfoot. The modern legend exploded in 1958. A construction worker named Jerry Crew found massive 16-inch footprints near his job site in Northern California. When a local newspaper published the story, readers were fascinated. That's when the name Bigfoot was born. But it was 1967 that cemented the myth forever. At Bluff Creek, California, two men, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, claimed they captured Bigfoot on film. The grainy footage showed a huge figure covered in hair, striding upright through the forest. Skeptics call it a hoax. Believers call it proof. More than 50 years later, experts still argue about whether the Patterson-Gimlin film shows a man in a suit, or something the world had never seen before. Sightings that never stopped. Bigfoot didn't vanish after the cameras stopped rolling. Reports continued to pour in across the decades. In 1978, hikers in Washington state claimed to hear terrifying, guttural screams echoing across the mountains. In 2006, a hunter in Manitoba, Canada, said a massive silhouette watched him from the tree line, before disappearing without a sound. Even truck drivers on remote highways have told stories of a giant, shadowy figure crossing the road in the dead of night, leaving only silence behind. These stories may sound unbelievable, but they come from people who swear they know what they saw. And strangely enough, the details rarely change. Real or just a myth? Scientists point out one problem. A creature this large should leave undeniable evidence. No bones, no bodies, no DNA. Skeptics argue sightings are misidentified bears, elaborate hoaxes, or tricks of the imagination. But believers push back. The wilderness is vast. Entire species of animals are still discovered every year. Couldn't something intelligent and reclusive survive, avoiding humans for centuries? And Bigfoot isn't alone in legend. In the Himalayas, locals speak of the Yeti. In Australia, the Yowie. Across the world, cultures share tales of wild men hiding just beyond the reach of civilization. A legend that lives on. Whether real or imagined, Bigfoot has become more than just a creature. He's a cultural icon, a reminder that the world still holds mysteries we cannot explain. So, what do you believe? Is Bigfoot just a hoax kept alive by blurry photos and stories passed through generations? Or is there something waiting in the shadows, watching from the forest, leaving only footprints behind?
In the dry, cracked heart of Arizona near the small town of Kingman lies a canyon that doesn't appear on most tourist maps. A place scorched by the sun by day and chilled by sorrow at night. Locals call it Slaughterhouse Canyon, but long ago it had another name, a forgotten one. Back in the 1800s, this canyon was nothing more than an isolated stretch of desert, harsh, silent, brutal. A struggling family made their home there, a father, his wife, and their children, living off what little the land could offer. Food was scarce, life was hard, but they endured. The father would ride into nearby towns for supplies, often gone for days, sometimes weeks, but each time he returned, until he didn't. One fateful summer, the father rode off and never came back. Maybe he was killed. Maybe he got lost. No one knows. Days passed, then weeks. The food ran out. The children began to starve, and the mother, already worn thin by the desert's cruelty, began to unravel. They say grief can change a person, but starvation? starvation consumes the soul. One night, she dressed in her tattered white gown, and something inside her snapped. Some say it was mercy, others call it madness, but under a moonless sky, she ended her children's suffering with her own hands and dragged their lifeless bodies to the dry riverbed where she buried them in the dirt. Then, covered in blood, she let out a cry so full of pain it echoed off the canyon walls like thunder. And then, she vanished. Some say she died of hunger, wandering the desert until her body gave out. Others claim she threw herself into the riverbed where her children were buried, hoping to join them in the next life. But one thing is certain, the canyon was never the same. To this day, hikers and campers report hearing a woman's wail just after sundown. A long, drawn-out cry of anguish, followed by silence. Some swear they've seen her, a pale woman in white stumbling through the canyon, her hands bloodied, her eyes empty. The sightings often come with a feeling: thick air, cold shivers, the sense that something wants you to follow. And some do. A few visitors have wandered into the canyon after sunset, only to emerge shaken, pale, and unable to speak. One hiker claimed he heard children whispering, "Mama." Another said he felt a hand on his back, though no one was there. Slaughterhouse Canyon is more than a ghost story. It's a tragic echo of love, twisted by suffering, of a mother who broke beneath the weight of hopelessness and hunger. So if you're ever near Kingman, and the desert wind carries a woman's cry, don't listen, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't follow it. Because some grief never rests, and some spirits never forget. In the year 1284, a man arrived in the quiet German town of Hamlin. He wore vibrant, multicolored clothing and played a strange melody on a pipe. As he walked out of town, 130 children followed him. None were ever seen again. It sounds like folklore, like something pulled from a fairy tale book. But Hamlin was, and still is, a real place. And in that town's history, there's a documented moment when nearly all of its children vanished. One of the earliest records is not a story, but a stained glass window that once stood in the town's church, dated around 1300. It made no mention of rats. It simply marked a devastating truth, that on June 26, 1284, 130 children were taken by a mysterious piper in strange clothes. They were never returned. A public memorial. Not a fable. A tragedy. So who was this piper? Was he a magician? A vengeful spirit? Or something else entirely? Some believe he was hired to rid the town of rats. When the town refused to pay, he came back for their children. But here's the unsettling truth. The rats weren't part of the original story. That detail was added centuries later, possibly to mask something more terrifying. During the 13th century, German territories were expanding eastward. Settlements were forming in less populated regions. Entire villages were being emptied. Some scholars believe the piper may have been a recruiter, enticing young people to migrate, or abducting them under false promises. There's also the possibility of catastrophe, a plague, a natural disaster, a mass drowning, maybe even a ritual. Was Hamlin covering up something it could not explain? Something it could not forgive? To this day, in the town of Hamlin, there's a street where music is forbidden. Bungelosenstrasse, the street without drums. It is believed to be the very place where the children were last seen. Even today, no festivals pass through it. No flutes, no fiddles, no songs, only silence. Town records from the Middle Ages speak plainly. The Chronicle of Hamlin reads, "In the year of 1284, on the day of Saints John and Paul, the children of Hamlin disappeared." So what really happened? Was the piper a supernatural force sent to punish? A man who was wronged and took his revenge? A predator with no name, hidden in the folds of history? Or is the tale of the piper a smoothed-over retelling of something far more sinister, something we've forgotten on purpose? The Pied Piper still haunts the imagination not because he is magical, but because his story remains unsolved. 130 children vanished, and not one clue has ever explained it. So the next time you hear the soft notes of a pipe drifting on the wind, and your feet start to move without you, remember this warning. Some music doesn't lead you home, it leads you away. In the hushed corridors of Nigeria's boarding schools, where the air turns heavy after lights out, a single sound has haunted generations of students: koi. Koi. The eerie click of high heels on tiled floors, echoing when no one is supposed to be walking. This is the legend of Madam Koi Koi, a tale whispered in the dark, feared across states, and carried like a curse from school to school. It's said that Madam Koi Koi was once a teacher, elegant, poised, and impeccably dressed. She was especially proud of her red high-heeled shoes, which marked her presence with that unmistakable sound. But behind the polished appearance was a cruel heart. Students trembled under her discipline. She slapped for minor mistakes, locked girls out in the rain for gossiping, and ruled the school with fear. Her reputation was feared more than respected. Her obsession with her red heels became symbolic of her power. No one dared to scuff them, speak ill of them, or even joke about them. But one year, a group of students had endured enough. They plotted to end her reign. One stormy evening, someone stole one of her precious red shoes. Chaos erupted the next morning. She stormed through the halls, limping in one heel, shrieking threats. Her steps echoed wildly, "Koi, Koi," until she missed a broken stair and fell. Some say her neck snapped instantly. Others whisper that she lay dying, muttering a bitter curse. Whatever the truth, Madam Koi Koi died that day. But peace never returned to the school. Soon after, the hauntings began. Students reported footsteps at night. Doors creaked open on their own. Some swore they saw her ghost, pale, blood-stained, gliding through the halls, still wearing her red heels. Girls who heard the footsteps were often too scared to sleep. A few were found shivering under blankets, unable to speak. What started in one school began spreading. From Lagos to Enugu, Ibadan to Benin, the legend traveled. No one could trace its exact origin. Some claimed she taught in the 60s, others swore it was in the 80s. But the warnings were always the same. Never wander alone at night. Don't look back if you hear the footsteps. And never respond to your name after curfew. One former student recalled her experience. "My second week in boarding school, I heard the footsteps. Clear as day, koi, koi. I froze in bed. It stopped outside our dorm. I saw the shadow under the door. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The next morning, I was still in that same position. Urban legend or not, the fear is real. Teachers whisper it behind closed doors. Parents mention it with hushed warnings. Some schools refuse to acknowledge it. But even today, students report the sound. And every child who's ever boarded in Nigeria knows her name. Madam Koi Koi is more than a ghost story. She is a memory passed down like a prayer, part caution, part fear. And if you ever hear heels echoing behind you in an empty hallway, just keep walking, or pray she doesn't stop. This has been Urban Whispers, and some whispers should never be followed.
If you like this video, please support the channel by liking, commenting, and sharing to help us keep making videos like this one. Don't forget to subscribe to Urban Whispers for more.